maybe TV. I'm assuming it'd be better if he was, I'm not sure if. Well, so I would like to call to order our ACSD board meeting for January 26th. The current time is 6:30. At this time, I would like to do introductions. And why don't we start with folks in the room first, that's in the library. That would be awesome.
Jason Chance.
Mary Heather Noble.
Jamie McCallum.
And go ahead, Matt.
Matt Carenti, Director of Finance and Operations.
Okay, so then those who are online, why don't we start with Steve Orrich?
Steve Orzek.
And then Ellen,
Ellen Whelan-Wiest.
and then Ellie,
Ellie Romp.
Suzanne,
Suzanne Buck.
and Steve Cash,
Steve Cash.
Taryn.
Taryn Burns.
Okay, and then those administrators who are currently online as well.
Tanya Afline, Director of Equity, Inclusion, and Restorative Practices.
Wendy Baker.
Nellie Colazo, Assistant Superintendent of Specialized Services.
Brittany Cron, Director of Teaching and Learning.
Excellent. And Ron, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Ron Macliff, board member.
Okay, great. Did I miss?
Jess.
Oh, and Bruce, don't forget you.
Bruce McIntyre, Director of Facilities.
And Jess is being promoted right now, Barb.
Okay, so we'll just wait a second here.
And you should introduce yourself.
Yes, thank you.
Jess Venable Novak.
And thank you, Jess. And this is Barbara Wilson, board member as well. At this time, what I'd like to do, if I haven't missed anyone, right?
Don't think so.
Okay, great. Is to have a motion to adopt the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Yep. And I want to make a correction. I accidentally, at one point, I was not going to be able to participate in tonight's board meeting, and my plans changed, and I did a global substitution and I missed one. So under Addison Central CPAC, it has my name when I did the global substitution, because Suzanne was going to do the meeting for me. So that should be Suzanne and Mary Heather. Sorry about that. Any other changes needed for the agenda? Okay, so all those in favor of approving the agenda with the modification that I noted, please indicate by saying aye or use your Zoom hand.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, great. The agenda has been approved. Next is our first public comment period. And we do have some attendees. I do not believe there's any community and public in the meeting room. Is that accurate?
That's correct.
Okay, great. So I see we have several folks who are attendees. If anyone would like to make a public comment, if you could raise your Zoom hand, that would be awesome.
Laura Harthan is also joined, Barb.
Okay, excellent. Hi, Laura.
Hello.
Okay. I'm not seeing anyone raise their Zoom hand. So then, oh, we do have one person. Oh, Amy. And please, with public comments, if you could please keep your comments limited to 3 minutes, that would be awesome. And as always, we do not want to hear about, specific students and employees, that kind of thing in this forum. Just if you could make sure you adhere to that, that would be awesome. So, Amy, go ahead. I think you're
Amy,
you're muted.
Sorry, I just wanted an opportunity to thank the ACSD board for the opportunity to work for the school district for a number of years. I appreciated the support and the opportunities provided to me while I was a teacher. So thank you.
Oh, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for your service. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, much
Thank
appreciated,
you.
Amy.
Thank you.
And anyone else? Okay, so seeing none, obviously we have another public comments period towards the end of the meeting. So if in fact you want to make a comment then, you're perfectly welcome to do so. Next up is a recommendation to approve minutes for the January 12th, 2026 meeting. Can I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Any discussion on the minutes? Okay, seeing none. All those in favor of approving the minutes for January 12th, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Thank you. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, the minutes have been approved. Next up is approval of the ACSD bills. And Jason, I'm going to hand it over to you at this time.
Yes, I'm actually going to suggest that we just defer this until next time, and we'll review more bills because the office was closed and we didn't get a chance to actually review invoices today.
Okay.
There were several outstanding questions that I think will need to be followed up on. So.
And I think I have no problem with that. Is everyone fine with that?
Yep.
Yep.
Okay, great. Thank you. Next on our agenda is report of the student representative, and I'm gonna hand it over to, do you have any comments tonight, Taryn?
Yes, me and Nava are planning on meeting with students at Shoreham tomorrow to collect data and perspectives just like we did at Salisbury, and we will report back to you once we get the information.
Excellent. Thank you. Any questions, comments for a student rep?
No, just gratitude for doing this and for elevating Shoreham to the top of the list.
Yes, thank you. Next, is the report of the superintendent. So I'll turn it over to Dr. Baker.
Okay, we begin with personnel appointments and resignations. As you heard a little earlier from Amy, she's let us know that it is her intention to retire. Amy is one of those special educators that when I transitioned into ACSD, it became very clear to me very soon, everyone looks up to. Families love, colleagues admire, and she just has really had some amazing dedicated service in her time, and has served multiple ACSD schools during that time. So we are excited to support her to make a transition, and looking forward to helping her finish out a great year. You will also see that Linda Barrett has put in her retirement as well. Linda has been, as many of you know, the administrative assistant at Bridport Central School now for over 40 years. And she is also somebody who has taught me a lot as an incoming superintendent, as you might imagine. And it's not our intention to let her get too far if we can. So, however, she'll be retiring from full-time service at the end of this year, and those are there for your acceptance.
Okay. Can I have a motion? Suzanne? Suzanne, thank you.
I move to, with deep regret, accept the resignation of Linda Barrett from the Bridport Elementary School. And, I don't know how to pronounce her last name.
Amy Python.
Amy Python?
Correct.
Okay. Also at the end of the year, she's leaving us as a special educator. So I move that we approve those resignations.
And can I have a second?
I'll second MH.
Okay, thank you. Any questions, comments?
Well, they're retirements, not resignations.
Yes.
Oh, sorry, meant retirements.
Okay.
Steve?
I feel it necessary to say something about both of these spectacular individuals. Many of you were not here during the gap in leadership that happened at the middle school. Amy stepped up and she did an amazing job holding that school together. She did everything there, including calling subs. I mean, she was the person that handled calling subs. In addition to the day-to-day operations of that school, I was amazed, and I told her on multiple occasions, you need to slow it down or you're going to burn out. So I'm really sorry to see her go. Linda has been just a stalwart supporter of the community that she's in, the school that she's worked in, and just she's one of those people that you see and I'm not disparaging principals in any way, but you know that there's one person at the school that knows everything about it. That's Linda. And not only does she know everything about the school, she knows a lot about the district and the career center and just many aspects of our district. I am really sorry to see both of these ladies go, and I do wish them the best.
Okay, anyone else?
I will echo Steve's comments. I do not know Amy that well, but she did step in at the middle school and helped out tremendously. But Linda has been like a mother hen. And I say that with great reverence to many students at the Bridport Elementary School. She's been there to bandage fingers, to help make phone calls, to dry tears when somebody shows up in tears. But she has been there through all of it. And it was interesting. I had a conversation with her a couple months ago when Shoreham was talking about doing they were reimagining the taking back of the fort over in Ticonderoga. And she's like, Suzanne, I saw that and I found all of the Bridport costumes from when we did it. And she said, I'm going to take those down to Shoreham. I don't know if they ever made it to Shoreham, but she found those costumes, and it was interesting making that full circle. So I will miss her, and I know the community here will definitely miss her.
Okay, thank you, Suzanne. And Ellie.
Yeah, I would just like to share something about Amy. From time that she really helped my family when she was in a leadership role at Mom's, and my oldest child was there. And he had detention, and he crawled under the table and oops, sorry, my phone glitched. My oldest son crawled under the table at detention and went to sleep, and nobody realized it, and the whole school closed down and locked up, and everyone went home. I called Amy and couldn't find him, and she came out in the night, and she drove around, and I drove around, and we searched Middlebury thinking he had run away, and she was right there with me, helping me for like 2 hours, going everywhere we could think of, McDonald's and, the library, and it was dark and it was cold and it was raining, and we were very worried. And finally the janitor found Colby asleep under the table in detention room. And Amy and I cried and hugged and kissed Colby. It was just so nice to have her show up like that as a person, not just an administrator. And I really appreciate her work here at all she's done for ACSD.
Thank you for that, Ellie. Anyone else? Okay.
Okay. So
we need to do the vote.
Oh.
All those in favor of accepting the well-deserved retirements of Linda Barra and Amy Pyprom, I probably killed your last name, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay.
One abstention.
Okay, thank you.
Make that 2, please.
2. Thank you, Laura. Okay.
Thanks, everybody. So tonight we feature a presentation from Dr. Nellie Collazo around specialized services. It's her first time being able to talk with you tonight about specialized services as she sees it and is experiencing it. We have worked to help her put together a presentation that will make it so that she can give you an overview and be a jumping off point for future conversations that you have with her. So there are a number of staff who perform good work in specialized services who are also attendees tonight. And as part of the superintendent's report, I'd like to take the liberty, once Dr. Collazo finishes, to just be able to invite some of them to add some of their perspectives based on some of the work that they're doing. So if that's okay.
Absolutely.
Go right ahead, Nellie.
Hi, everyone. Good evening. I'm trying to get the share together, just making sure that everyone can see it. Yes,
Yep,
perfect.
good.
I was pretty excited about being face to face with all of you. So you will see some of my notes will probably be more of I was going to be in front of all of you, but I've done this before, so hopefully my energy will still show. So thank you so much for having me today. And I'm going to start with good evening and thank you for the opportunity to be here. I'd like to begin by expressing my sincere gratitude to the district leadership team. They have been amazing from the beginning, and they have welcomed me, as all of you have, as a Board of Education. Also, our incredible specialized service teachers and evaluation team and paraeducators, which also include Erin Robinson as our specialized service coordinator, and of course, our superintendent, Dr. Baker, for her ongoing support and partnership. I wouldn't be able to do all the hard work that I've done these last 7 months if it wasn't for this entire team. Although I've only been here for 7 months, I have been truly impressed by the dedication, skill, and compassion I see from our specialized service team every day. Specialized services, as you all know, is very challenging work. It requires expertise, perseverance, and above all, heart. And the care and commitment that every single one of them bring to this work, as you have all even said about Amy, who also I believe is amazing, make the work we do meaningful, and it makes a difference on our students and their families every day. So I want to gratefully and deeply thank them for all their work, which is why I invited them to be here with me today, because this is not about me. This is about them. And this is what I want you all to know, that my presentation today is not about what I've done in the last 7 months, is what our specialized team, Addison Central School District specialized team, had done before me and continues to do with me here. So thank you. So we're going to start with our agenda. I'm going to keep it simple with a little umbrella. ACSD specialized services includes our multilingual learners team, our 504, and our IEP students. So I am going to start with our multilingual learners services. We begin with this team. Our multilingual team services provides our learners with instructional services, focusing on both oral and academic language attainment. Reading, writing, speaking, and listening. This is all done with integration into our IB framework. In addition to that, our multilingual teachers work collaboratively with our family liaisons to support family communication. Next, we talk about our specialized services provided under a 504 plan. A 504 plan provides accommodations to help students with disabilities access learning on an equal basis with their peers. These supports remove barriers without changing academic expectations. Accommodations may include things like extended time, seating supports, or health-related needs, which include medical and counseling and pieces that include those. The goal is to help students fully participate and be successful at school. In the secondary level, we have a 504 coordinator to be the LEA for all 504s. In the elementary, all 504s are managed within the school building. Next, specialized services we will discuss is the IEP services. IEP services provide individualized instruction and support for students with disabilities who need specialized education. Each IEP is tailored to students' unique strengths and needs and is developed by a team that includes educators and their families. Services may include specialized instruction, related services, and accommodations. In the chart displayed, you will see the key components of an IEP. Present levels, which are current academics and functional performance, measurable goals, specific achievable targets for the school year, services, specialized instruction, and or related therapies, which include speech, OT, PT, which is OT is occupational therapy, PT is physical therapy, accommodations and or modifications, because a student can have both, and changes on to how or what the students learn. You will see that I've highlighted 4 areas with stars. These are the areas that we are working with the VTHEC as professional development this year to ensure that we are all working together to build those areas and that we're synchronized as a specialized team. So we're working on progress monitoring and goal reviews, present levels of performance, progress reporting, and annual IEP goals. With that short overview, because I was told and I understood very clearly that you are all very well-versed in special education and specialized services and what they do, I wanted to jump in and provide you with a focus to the students we serve. So the following enrollment data is where I wanted to move forward to. So following enrollment data provides a snapshot of how many students are receiving these supports across the district and help ground our work in the needs of our school's community. For the purpose of completing this presentation in time, all the data that you will see from here moving forward was pulled on the date of January 9th, around that date. I did that on purpose just because I wanted the data to be the same, but I couldn't put it any further from that date because I wanted to make sure that the presentation was completed. So please be aware that these numbers have changed since then. Just give you a few minutes to look at it. Okay. So now that we've reviewed enrollment, I'd like to turn our attention to referrals for specialized services. When I first walked in to ACSD, that's one of the questions that was always asked. How many referrals are we getting? How is that working? So as of January 9th, you can see that we have the school year of 24, and now we've started collecting the data of school year 25. So as of January 29th or January 9th, these were our initial referral numbers. Please let me explain what an initial referral is. So initial referrals are a formal written request to a school district to evaluate a student suspected of having a disability that may require specialized services. That doesn't mean they're receiving it yet. Keeping an eye on initial referral data helps us identify systematic trends. It helps us support early interventions, and it also helps us prevent any inappropriate referrals. So one of the things that we've done this year is that we've synchronized and our referral process, where we have one document and all the referral process goes through that. And so now we're able to have one referral process that goes through the district office, and we're able to look at that through and go work with the evaluation team to be able to make sure that that data is all collected appropriately to move forward. So this is the numbers as of January 9th of our initial referrals only. Yes, Ellen.
Nellie, is it okay if we pepper you with questions throughout? I realize.
I don't know. Is it?
Yes.
I think you get to decide. I'm curious if these numbers seem high to you. And Wendy, I don't expect you to be an expert on all things Vermont, but you're way more expert than I am. And I'm curious if you feel like these are consistent statewide to the extent that you might know, but Nellie particularly is both an expert in specialized services and coming new to the district, new to Vermont. Just your reactions to these numbers would be helpful.
So I will say that for me right now, it would be too soon to answer that question. It's important for me to have a baseline. If you ask me this question, maybe but mid next year, I could probably say yes or no. It would probably take me 2 years to really look at these numbers to really tell you if they're high. The reason is because once you see further into this presentation, I do have the ability, even though the data is not year to year, I did have the ability to compare some of Vermont numbers and our numbers. And there is some comparison that does show that we are pretty even with Vermont, even though the years are not the same. And it would be unfair for me to compare New York to Vermont because the systems are not the same.
I think historically, referrals are high in Vermont. You know, I wouldn't say that we are markedly different from other districts of our size.
All right. Anyone else? I'm happy to answer the questions going through, because if not, you guys are going to forget them by the end. So, all right. So this is another way of looking at initial referrals. I always find this data kind of like an aha. There is not anything that is really just, it's just an aha. That's all it really is. It doesn't really mean anything except that. But as you can see, this is our initial referrals, parent requests versus school requests. It is definitely a culture thing in any school district in any state that you go to. But for our school district, there's prior parent requests and there is school request of initial referrals. Okay. Now, this is one of those questions that I was asked earlier in the school year and I couldn't give the answers to, so I made sure that the slide was on here. So as of last year, our district did over 200 plus evaluations. So as of right now, we're working through a total of 147. Of these 147, 17 initial evaluations have been completed. 37 initial evaluations are actively in progress. For reevaluations, we have a total of 96 that have to be completed this year. Does anyone need me to explain what a reevaluation is?
Yes, please.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so a reevaluation. So when a child has a 504 or an IEP, we have to do a reevaluation every 3 years to ensure that they still qualify for that for those services. It supports their classification or their disability, so it ensures that we're providing the right services through the data collection. An evaluation is usually comprehensive, and it can also be a records review, which is also comprehensive. With that process, the reevaluations are done every 3 years. So right now, this year, we have 96 that would be due. So out of those 96, we have completed 54 of them. 39 are currently in progress, and 3 of them have not started yet because they're not due yet, right? So we still have some time. It is only January. Based on the current referral trend, though, we anticipate completing approximately about 175 evaluations this year, which would be a lot fewer than 200 plus, which were done last year. We can't say for fact why the referral process has gone down, but we do believe that maybe the new referral process that we have put in place has also supported us collecting more data in the beginning and supporting that early intervention process in the school districts, in the school buildings, I'm sorry. Okay. Does that make sense? All right. So now that we've reviewed evaluation activity and progress in specialized services, let's turn to the students receiving IEPs. The following data breaks down IEP enrollment by cohorts, giving us a clear picture of who is being served across the district. Though at this time, we're not ready to come to a conclusion, I just wanted to show you where we are as a district on numbers of IEPs.
Okay. Dr. Clauso, would you mind for the public record and the recording clarifying what EE stands for?
I'm sorry, IEE?
The EE on the
EEE. Oh,
graph.
sorry. Those are early children. So it's preschool. So it's grades 3 through 5. It's our preschool kiddos.
EE stands for essential education.
Yep.
Thank you.
It's not early education? Sorry, I assumed it.
It's typically known as well, it was originally known with 3 E's for early essential education. And over the years, it's kind of morphed.
Thank you. And the acronym keeps changing every time I hear it. And so now with an understanding of student needs and specialized services enrollment, and with all the conversations that all of you have been having regarding budgetary costs, we can now look at the staffing that supports these services. This data shows the numbers of specialized services staff in the district and helps us see how resources align with the students' demands. So you will see that I followed just the parentheses as what has been vacant for 24-25, what was vacant, what has been vacant for 25-26. And of course, I didn't put anything in parentheses, but my hope is that we don't have any vacancies next year.
Quick question, Dr. Collazo. Does this staffing include that the early educated and the 3 through 5 year olds, or is that different because it's kind of shared throughout the county?
Yes, I did not include the preschool numbers because that is shared. This is just from our K through 12.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
All right, I'm going on. I see you all pondering. It's different when I'm up close in a camera. All right, so contracted services. Next, we'll look at the contracted services, their associated costs, and the number of students they support. This information helps us understand how additional services align with students' enrollments and how these investments fit within our overall budget.
Well, so I have a question about the speech therapy. Is this mainly because we cannot hire speech language pathologists in-house? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
And I assume that if we could, we would probably be paying a little bit less money than when we outsource, right? Yeah.
Correct.
Not necessarily.
Oh, okay.
I think, it's a variable expense when we're contracting, so it's a function of how many students are receiving services versus the fixed costs of salary and benefits. We've always considered that roughly 4 unfillable FTEs that are served by that access contract. So it's not necessarily a huge savings. You can't assume that it would be one way or the other.
One thing that makes it comparable actually is that there are hidden costs relative to paraeducators or others in buildings who need to be with kindergartners, first graders as they are accessing virtual services. So those costs are not represented, obviously here in this way, but that time is coming away from something else. So it's roughly a wash.
Thank you.
Also, I think, one of the things that as Nellie becomes more involved in the contracting for FY27, the number of students who are served from the services of CSAC at the bottom will be adjusted. What's not there are students who are necessarily served by clinicians. And those caseloads are private to the clinicians, and so we didn't dig into that for this presentation, but I think as we continue with this line of transparency, then that sense of how many students are receiving those services will become part of the presentation in the future.
I have a follow-up question as well. So these numbers for contracted services, does this include services provided for evaluations as well, or is this just services provided for what's already established in student IEPs and 504 plans?
This is just for 504s and IEP plans.
Okay, so in fact, the amount that we pay for contracted services could potentially be more because of calling in folks for evaluations as well, or is that just kind of a negligible number that well, I guess my question is, are the evaluations provided by in-house professionals, or do we also contract services out for the evals?
I wouldn't say that all of our evaluations are being currently done by our in-house evaluators. My understanding is during the summer, before I got here, there may have been some contracted out because the evaluators it was summer break, but during the school year, I have not contracted out for evaluations.
Okay, thanks. That's helpful.
I think we've done a little bit of that in the past, but part of that it relates to just the sheer overwhelm of our eval team, which
Mhm.
hopefully as we're moving ahead, that will continue to feel more manageable.
Okay. So here is the chart that I was talking about where we were able to compare. So as you can see, the beginning of the school year, our director of special education from AOE was able to share with us the school year 23-24 data regarding their special disability categories. So I took their data and I compared it to ours for the 25-26 school year. And as you can see, we're not very far off. So it highlights similarities and differences, but it gives us a clear perspective on how our students' population aligns with a broader trend. So I think it's fair to say, which is why I would say those initial referrals, it would be too early for me to say that we're too high or we're too low, because this data shows me just from a glance that we might just be following the Vermont trend.
Can you explain, Dr. Classo, the distinct or the difference, the big difference that I see just right off the bat is the difference in students who qualify for IEPs under the other or health impairment, or IEPs and 504s under other health impairment. I'm just noticing. Oh, you know what? I'm sorry. I'm looking at what's in the board materials. I'm not looking. So let me just take that question.
Yeah, so you're right. Because I had the opportunity to look through the data today. I went through it with the team, as a matter of fact, just kind of quick review going through my notes. And I saw that the chart on Google Chart was off. And so I went and cleaned it up because somehow that chart got completely kiboshed. So this is the correct data. So again, they're 18.4 and we're 18.2.
Yep. Thank you. Sorry about that.
No, you're okay. No, that was, I think I messaged Darcy on the side and said, hey, can we put the clean one in there and take the old one out? Because I don't like mistakes, but too late, right? And unfortunately, I was out in a conference on Friday, so I'm sorry about that.
It's
Ellen?
all good.
Ellen.
Yeah, I mean, Nellie, definitely not asking for this level of information, maybe at all, but certainly not tonight. But thinking back to the slide you showed us on IEPs by age groups, sort of when they're plans that are put in place. And I'm curious if you're able, with the data that we have, to cut deeper to look at the different categories for at least IEPs and maybe 504s too, by when they're identified. Because I'm just curious, like if there's some things that are more immediately identified for a student earlier on in their school experience, or if there are things that come up later that end up resulting in IEPs. So again, not asking, putting you on the spot to have that information, but just wondering if you're able to dig into that as a team.
So the truth is we can dig into a lot. One of the things that, I'm pretty fortunate to have Erin Robinson as my coordinator because she kind of understands my brain and I'm really data driven. So if I ask her for something, she pops up with a chart pretty quickly from EdDoc. And so I probably could come up with the data. The truth of the matter is we still have a few things to refine in our systems and our processes for the data to be precise. But I'm sure that I guess what I'm saying, some of our systems still need a little bit more refining before that data is precise and I can give you that information. I'd also have to make sure that those numbers are not identifiable because I learned the rule today of 11. But I think I could just, it would take some digging up. It's like an onion and I have to keep peeling it.
Yeah, no, of course. And again, I don't know that that's even, I truly have totally ignorant if that would be an appropriate thing to bring to the board, so much as I'm remembering to a long ago presentation that the board received similar content, but Vermont was listed really high on emotional disturbance, like way higher than other states in the country. And when we talked about that, no one could really offer an exact understanding of that, but there was a member of the public who attended the meetings quite regularly who offered her feeling that it was probably because other needs were not being identified earlier on for students where it might develop into emotional disturbance. Again, she wasn't necessarily, operating from data, but that was her educated guess. So anyway, that's like the example that jumps out to me. But just thinking about how there are a lot of kids who it looks like their IEPs are coming later, 8th grade or later, and just curious about that. But that's now we're
Yeah.
into comment territory, so I'll stop.
No, it's okay. And just to give you some closure, I completely understand. The truth of the matter is, best practices is to truly provide a document between first and second grade. Due to the fact that kindergarten's a little young, first grade is learning to read, second grade, mid second grade is reading to learn to third grade. So that's usually when the delays really impact the child. That's when we start looking into interventions and trying to figure out when to best provide specialized services. And that's when we start tracking children with data. There's enough research base and data to be able to formulate that information, but we need to figure out the processes as a district that we want to use to be able to truly follow the data and provide best services for students. Barb?
Hi, thank you. A question, assuming we have more kids that are in preschool, will we be in a better position to be watching kids and maybe get them on a plan sooner than having it delayed?
I see Wendy shaking her head no, so I don't want to answer for the superintendent, but I will say it's not best practice for us to provide documents to students as little ones unless they really need one. Preschool is really about immersing them in education. We provide interventions in preschool and we provide them education as early learners. Our goal is to learn to play, learn to socialize, like we just let them experience everything. If there are delays, our teachers, I've worked with our preschool teachers, they are world versed in what they are tracking. We do provide speech support, occupational therapy support, physical therapy support. That doesn't mean that a child should get a document. That just means that interventions are put into place to ensure that the student is receiving all those pieces so they can make sure that they're learning in their best environment and are going to be successful, right? Compensatory age is not until 5 anyway. So the reality is they don't have to be in preschool. So us getting them early provides us the opportunity to immerse them in a well-educated environment, and giving them a document doesn't mean that they learn better.
Right.
And
Yeah,
we already provide that, Barb, with our our outreach folks. So, it's if we were to have more students that are able to access pre-K, then, there may be other additional services that we can provide, but we already have a very healthy network of supports for our pre-K students.
Excellent. Thank you. Suzanne.
Suzanne?
But isn't developmental delay the only category that students under the age of 6 can be found?
Yes.
And that developmental delay it's the only category, but the students under developmental delay can also have autism or hearing impairments or things like that. So I guess what I'm trying to say is, just because people see that broad category of developmental delay, that then turns into or can turn into many of these other categories that are shown on the chart once the child hits the age of 6.
Yes, but this chart is not for little ones. This chart is for K through 12.
With the exception of the developmental delay chunk.
Right.
Right.
So this moves us on to how our students need compared to the state strengths. Let's turn to our district alternative program. I know that's been a wide conversation just because of costs. We'll review its purpose, staffing, and associated costs to understand how it supports students requiring a more specialized learning environment. So the core principles have been displayed. But the alternative program within our district has are being displayed here, and it has the staffing and the total cost per program. Due to enrollment numbers that could be identifiable cost numbers have been generalized to represent general tuition costs. And then the FY26 aggregated total cost of these placements is $1.93 million.
I think it's helpful for the board to understand that, from a cost perspective, as you'll see on the next slide, our cost for the alternative supports that we are providing in the district is comparable to our out-of-district placement cost levels. There are more students that are able to access these. However, they are programs that are significantly staffed and doing good work. But it's important to understand a little bit more about what they look like, I think, altogether.
In addition to that, for the out of district, please be aware that we've just listed some. It doesn't necessarily mean that we have students in every single one of them, but we're continuing to build community partnerships with inside and outside of them, because there's some more that we've not built relationships with them yet. But it shows that the enrollment numbers that could be identifiable cause, again, this doesn't represent that we may have a kid here. It's just this is the tuition that we would pay if there was a student there, and then that would include the transportation for them. And then again, the placement would be 1.9.
And Steve has the question.
Hi, Steve.
Hi. So you said that you can't break these down by whether we have students in those programs or not, because it would be identifiable. Could you give us an estimate of how many students are being served in total out of district placement? Without saying where they are or what they're doing, is it possible that we could know how much it costs and all the students, or how many students are involved?
As of right now, I'd have to look at a different sheet that I would have to pull out of this one to look at your exact numbers. But my last number that I looked at, I think we had 20 kids out of district.
Okay, thank you. And does that these are, as I understand, this is what it would cost for a kid to be in there. How much do we actually spend on out of district placements?
So I would have to look at the exact cost.
Okay.
I think you've got a slide on that, Nellie, that is either coming up or just passed.
Oh,
I'm
okay.
distracted by my road crews here, so I'm sorry.
No, my next one is like celebrations.
If you go one slide back, I think you've got that number.
This one?
Seems like the total slide, there was a slide that
There
had the
was a
total,
slide,
and it seems like it got taken out of the deck.
Yeah, I think your
I don't
total
see
is
it.
about 1.9 million.
That
So
is-
yeah.
Yeah, I have it on my comments. It's the 1.9 million. Yeah, that's it. That's what I said out loud.
That's what I remember from our budget presentations as well.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
That's strange that the
Yeah, I just said it out loud. That's why, Matt.
Yep.
So we reviewed a lot. We reviewed enrollment, referrals, evaluations, IEP data, staffing, contracted services, alternative program. And this data gives us a clear picture of student needs and how we are supporting them. We've made some meaningful progress, I believe, this year. With the new LEA systems, a single referral form, updated family resources, enhanced professional development, improved IEP writing, and monthly paraeducator training. Having this baseline data and dedicated teams allowed us to move forward with confidence. Seeing this progress makes our work and celebrations even more rewarding as a specialized team. And so our hope is that we continue to have celebrations and that we continue to move forward and continue to celebrate the progress that we're making for our students.
Dr. Colasso, can I ask a question? I'm just thinking with my CPAC rep hat on. I know the sort of coordinated effort between CPAC and the district has been a little bit delayed just from some postponed meetings and whatnot, but can you share a little bit about, I guess, what your thoughts are in terms of partnership with CPAC to kind of help move some of your goals for the specialized services forward?
Yeah, so my hope with CPAC is definitely we have Darcy is working on scheduling some time with me to also introduce myself with CPAC and work with them and get them to get to know me. My hope is to continue to support CPAC as they grow their agenda. I know that they were looking to have some introductory classes for parents on what how to go through the IEP process. We created some brochures that you should have gotten in the packet that my hope was to also share with CPAC to be able to have them give those as resources. Also share with them my expertise and be able to provide that expertise to be able to create the classes that they wanted to share, support them as they create the classes that they wanted to share with parents as they go through a process of special education. So those were my ideas, but the truth is, as I would love to know what it is that they want and kind of just be there to support them as a guidance. It's a parent group, so I don't want to be there and kind of, be the lead. I would like to be a support and a resource.
Thanks.
Yep. And so as we're moving forward, the goals that we hope to move forward is our focus will be on building capacity, strengthening partnerships with families, monitoring students' progress closely, and ensuring services are predictable, efficient, and effective. By prioritizing these goals, we can continue to support students' growth and make the most of our dedicated teams and resources. And that is the end. We kind of did questions through the process, but I'm happy to take any more that you may have. Suzanne, you have some.
Suzanne, you're on mute.
If you could go back one slide, Nellie, please.
Yep.
Oh, this is just a term I've never heard. So you say develop predictable service. Can you explain that a little bit more for me? Sorry.
Yep. So predictable services is like continuum of service. So when we think of continuum of service, for example, when a student, when we are having an IEP meeting and a special education teacher or an LEA says resource room, then it's a predictable service and everyone understands what a resource would look like and sound like. So when we're talking about predictable service, we're talking about synchronized language and everyone understands what that service would look like and sound like for a student.
Okay, great. Thank you. I had not heard that term before. And so thank you for that explanation.
Yeah, I originally said continuum of service, but
I would have gotten that one.
Sorry, just as a public service announcement, we are going to delay 2 hours tomorrow morning at the request of our road crews, and everyone's phone will begin to buzz with excitement about that announcement as it comes across.
Can you delay my job for 2 hours?
We do have some staff that, have joined in, and Nellie, if it's okay with you, I think it's nice just to be able to give, our teams an opportunity to let the board know anything they'd like to about their work, or just sort of, speak to the goals that you have as a team together, and things that anything that they would like to share.
Absolutely.
So we need to bring them forward into the panel because they're attendees.
Or they could raise their hand if they want to.
If they raise their hand, I think that
would be awesome.
Jason could do that. Yep, and we could be a going once, going twice moment. Obviously, if we were all in the room together, that would probably
It'd be a lot easier. Yes, it would be. We would love to hear from you.
No pressure.
We could just call on people.
Yeah.
Ray Chick has his hand.
We have some. Yes.
He's on the eval team.
Go ahead, Ray.
Since no one else is talking, I guess I need to open my mouth. But of course, you called on folks right when we brought the ice cream out. I'd say this is probably the best way to do a board meeting that I've come across. But I did want to say that thank you to Dr. Collazo. Her passion and her knowledge is refreshing, and it's great to feel like we're moving forward as a community, of special educators. Our numbers aren't going down. I've been doing this for a few years now, and it's hard work, and I appreciate all the comments from the board and all your support. And I just welcome you all to find your local special educator and reach out and say hi and thank you, and just ask them what you can do to support, because we're all in this together. And it's great to hear this now, but it's great to hear it in April. It's great to hear it in September. So thank you, everyone. And yeah, I guess I'll shut up now and eat my ice cream.
Okay, enjoy that ice cream, and thank you, Ray, for sharing. Jess.
Hi, thanks so much, Ray. I had one really simple question and then a follow-up question. Dr. Collazo, do all referrals become evals or not necessarily?
So I would say that the process is that all referrals do at some point, with the data is being collected, do become an eval. Yes.
Okay.
There may, because of the Vermont law, they have to go into that process. But sometimes we do ask for more data to be collected within the classroom. In our process, our building administrators support that process by speaking to the classroom teacher, by speaking to the interventionist to collect more data on the student to make it easier for the evaluator. Because we work now as a comprehensive evaluation process. And in our comprehensive evaluation process, our evaluators do a cognitive, they do an adaptive if necessary, and they do a academic, and then OT, PT, speech if necessary too, right? Anything else that's even, but they also collect all the data that's being provided from the classroom teacher and interventionist to ensure that we have a comprehensive understanding of the student to make sure that we're making the best decisions for them.
Awesome. Maybe I have one more question. Sorry. Or two more questions. And then not all evals turn into plans. So do we know?
Correct.
Right. Do we know about how many in our district do? Or
I do.
Ray's laughing and he's not supposed to because it's not his turn to answer.
I thought I was muted. Sorry.
So that is data that we are working on, right, Ray? data that we are working on. We are working to decipher which ones become evals, which ones becomes plans and which ones do not. And it's one of those systems, as I said, that is an onion and we're peeling.
Cool. I'm just super new to all this, so I have really basic questions.
That's okay. I teach this.
I love that. And then the other thing, I guess it's more of a comment, is that a lot of evals, 147 so far this year, projected to be 175. And it looked like the eval team was like 4.5 staff. Do you feel like that's enough? I mean, I only have experience with one eval, and it's an early childhood one. I don't know how different that is from K through 12, but it's a lot of work for the people doing them. And
it is.
Yeah, I couldn't imagine. Yeah, I don't know. That's like between 35 and 40 per person per year, which feels like a lot to me, but also I don't know.
So first and foremost, let me explain that the 4.5, the 0.5 is that early evaluator that we're supposed to have, that we weren't able to hire for at this time. Like it's still vacant. The outreach, Megan and Jotties, who are also amazing, who are part of my special ed team. Sonia really takes care of the preschool teachers and the preschool team, but I take care of the outreach because they are special ed primarily. They do a lot of those evaluations. Liza, who is our school, one of our school psychologists, supports a little bit of that just to cover that piece that's missing. So I can't answer at this time if 4.5 would be enough, because at this time we're working with just 4.
I think I would as the former interim director of specialized services, which is a job I'm very happy to have handed off. I think our eval team would say that they're stretched, and I think that would be. I think that's very real. So, the work that Nellie's doing to try to do some systemization of things and try to pull things together, I think hopefully will make it so that next year will feel a little bit different for them, but it's something that we're watching for sure.
Awesome. Yeah, I guess that's kind of what I assumed, and all of that context is really helpful. Yeah, even just knowing, I know we have the new positions, that one of them is full of people who can help with the administrative tasks, which I would imagine is huge. But yeah, just thinking about even for, that younger age group, it was like for current IEP plans, the ages with 30 plus, it looked like was the early childhood 3 to 5, and then 5th, 6th, and 8th grade. And yeah, just thinking about like layering on more support in future budgets is something that I would really support, is to expand this team, especially the eval folks, knowing that that is like a heavy lift, and also like they don't always translate to plans. So it's like a lot of work on the front end. Yeah, so just big kudos. I mean, just grateful for you, Dr. Collazo, and all the specialized services folks on this call doing the work every day. It's yeah, you take care of our kids in big ways.
I know you have other business. It's wonderful to enter into the conversation together. If you're all right for this evening, we could, begin to move on. And this will not be the last time that you see Dr. Collazo, and her team will be able to now kind of continue more targeted presentations in particular areas that they're working on, as they keep working through a baseline year.
Thank you,
Thank you
everyone.
so much. Yeah, thank you. And if I may, just before we say goodbye to Dr. Clauso, I'm just wondering if I can plant a seed of a curiosity that I have, and I don't know if it's data that you are already looking at, but I am curious, just having been a parent who's gone through this process many times, if you are tracking or plan to track the number of students who kind of toggle back and forth between 504 and IEPs, because I know that's certainly been an experience of our family, and just curious how how often that happens and if that's something that can be addressed or managed and overall. So
yeah. So just so you are aware, not only am I tracking that data, I'm also tracking the data of students that have both.
great. Perfect. Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you so much, Nellie, for the update and for your team coming to our board meeting. That was really awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm glad they came too. So thank you.
So next on the superintendent's report is a legislative update. The facilities committee had a nice conversation with our legislators today, and I think Jason is going to update the board on that. I did want to draw the board's attention to two things relative to just some of the testimony that's taking place. One of the things that I'm hoping to be able to do to support both our legislators and the board and the public in terms of understanding how legislative conversations relate to details on the ground is to watch testimony that's happening, particularly in the House Ed, Senate Ed, as well as the two finance committees on either side, and begin to actually put some dollars to those things that relate to ACSD dollars. So I sent you some material that covered Rebecca Holcomb's testimony last week, where she was giving the House Ed Committee a sense of some of the things behind the redistricting task force's decision around CSAs, collaborative educational service agencies. And in that testimony, she spoke about the different social services that school districts are now counted on to be able to provide. She talked about behavioral specialists, and clinicians and social workers, some of the things that you've actually just seen now in contracted services. And so some back of the napkin math, really, I mean, that's upwards of 2 million for us, which is, 4% of our budget. So, those are just some things that, we're trying to ground in information and I've shared that with our legislators as well. Another correction that I want to make to a report that I provided the board, I think in the last meeting that we were together, when we talked a little bit about small by choice versus small by necessity and where that is right now. We were able this morning to ask Peter Conlon specifically about that and what he knew about where that was in process. And he was able to share what I think is actually good news for a public process, which is that there is one more legislative step prior to going to back to the state board for rulemaking relative to those pieces. So there will be a legislative step of suggesting statutory requirement along the lines of the state board's report, or however the legislature chooses to adjust that. So for those who are following that from an advocacy perspective, that will be a conversation that will be agreed upon in the legislature next, and then it will proceed over to rulemaking, which is not how it usually goes, but I'm really pleased that, there'll be more conversation about that in publicly transparent ways, because I think that issue certainly warrants that. So those were two things that I wanted to make sure to just update the board on, and also provide the opportunity for you to ask any questions that you might have. I see Ellen.
Yep, Ellen.
Hey, thanks, Wendy. Do you have a sense of, or did Peter give a sense of timing on when it's going to the legislature, or even has it, like, where are we in the process?
Yeah, they've already received the report, which is on the House Ed website, and I can certainly find a way to dig that up and send it out. There's a more formal form than the piece that I already provided to you in presentation form, which is a little easier to digest. So he did not give timing as to when that would be worked out, but but it's obviously the House agendas are posted every week, and so as are the Senate. So we'll keep a close eye on that and be sure to update the board and our public when that comes up, because we know obviously that's a topic of conversation that's important in a lot of ways.
So the House Education Committee has the report, but they have not yet begun to discuss it. Is that right?
Correct. Correct.
Okay. Got it. Got it. Okay. So it would be a little early to tell people if they're interested in submitting comments or testimony to do that, or for any of us. But when the committee is taking this up for discussion, that would be the right time.
It would certainly be the right time to listen in and see how they are processing that. I imagine if that conversation is going to be, taken up in the legislature, that will not be a fast conversation. My guess is that, that's something that they will attract a lot of public testimony, particularly, around the Rural Education Collaborative, around the state. And so that will be probably a well-publicized discussion, which is, I think just positive for the democratic process.
And am I hearing you right? Sorry, Wendy. So the legislature will send their own recommendations on statutory implications of what the state board does, or does the legislature have to take some kind of action in order for this all to move forward?
So the legislature writes the laws, so they will be codifying what will happen into statute, and then it will go back to the state board for a rulemaking process that explains how that is done.
Got it.
So, yeah, so they will be writing the legislation that states the requirement.
Thank you.
Okay. Anything else, Barb? I don't know if you see other legislative pieces.
I think we're good. Thank
All right.
you.
That concludes the superintendent's report. Thank you, Dr. Colazzo, and other members of the district team for their help in kind of pulling those things together, and the staff that took the time to join in tonight as well.
Okay, so next up is report of the chair. I just wanted to spend a couple minutes talking about activities underway and reminders. First is a reminder. At the last board meeting, we handed out a board self-eval form, and a couple folks actually filled it out in the room, and a couple people have filled it out online. If we could wrap that up this week, that would be really beneficial, especially since the next thing I'm going to be talking about is the superintendent eval. So I would like to get this really pulled together and summarized before you are doing the superintendent eval. So if you could have that to us, and I know Mary Heather had sent out a link right after the previous board meeting. We can re-forward that link, so it's nice and handy for you. And I would really appreciate folks taking a few minutes just to fill that form out. Next,
please. I was just going to say we've only had 5 responses, so
yes, please. And I'm guilty, so I'm doing it tonight. So so there'll be 6. But please, yes. Next
Barb,
up, yes.
I'm sorry, I just want to get my paperwork straight. Is this the same thing that you'd handed out in person?
Yes.
So if we did it in person at that meeting,
did it. You did it.
Great. I was like, I ignored Mary Heather's email, but I thought,
you
okay,
should.
sorry.
Yep.
Okay.
She put it in. Yep. For the 2 folks that handed it in the meeting, those are in there. Those are part of the 5. Thank you. Next up, we also will be doing the superintendent evaluation, and we'll probably send out the information, the link, as well as the superintendent's self-evaluation. Since that's already been completed, we had targeted middle of the week. So tomorrow, that's all available. So that can go out to you, as well as employee input survey. And the deadline for this very critical, important task is February the 11th. So please schedule some time on your calendar. I know everyone is super busy to fill this eval out. And first starting out reading Dr. Baker's self-eval and then also filling out the form. You do need to allocate some time because as those who have done it last year, it's fairly long evaluation form, but it's very critical that we provide this level of input to our superintendent. So any questions on that?
Yes. Who is the survey going to? Is it going to all district employees or just a subset of district employees?
So I'm trying to remember. Is it admin or is it going out to beyond that? Executive committee?
My recollection is that it was going to be offered to all.
Yeah.
That was my recollection, but I would need to double check the minutes from our exec committee meeting.
That's mine as well, and it would certainly
Yeah.
be my recommendation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's what I thought, but all of a sudden I'm like, I didn't want to make something up on the fly. Okay, good question. And then just as a reminder, February the 23rd is the date that we will actually go into executive session and do and go through the eval with Dr. Baker. So it's important, to also have that on your calendar. It's a day before the annual meeting, which is on the 24th. And so that's a regular board meeting time. That will be the focus of that particular meeting. Maybe we'll do some bills, whatever, but there's not going to be any presentations, that kind of thing. Okay. And that's all I had. So I'd like to move into board committee reports. And we'll start out with communications and engagement. So Tricia.
Hey, you guys don't get to see my sick face tonight, but nice to see you all virtually.
Oh.
Fellow CNE members, feel free to jump in, but this past month we had two, I thought, very productive meetings in Shoreham and Salisbury. Shoreham was emotionally difficult one to be present for. And I think just reinforced that feelings are running high, and that the board continues to have a lot of work when it comes to trust between the board as a whole and our constituents as a whole. I think also in general from both of these meetings and a little bit from the other town hall meetings we've had, the idea of towns versus district, are we 7 towns in a district, or are we one district that includes 7 different towns, right? So really kind of thinking thoughtfully about how we work as a district and how we're including everyone under that umbrella, I think is work that the board could be putting more brain power to, I think. My brain is foggy tonight, of course. So fellow CNE members, as I said, these are some big meetings that we've been to. So were there any themes that you would like to also highlight for the board?
This is Jess. I'll just add that, this past month being in Shoreham and Salisbury, Shoreham is one of 2 schools with a new configuration next year. Salisbury is a school that has a new configuration this year, and a lot was said in both of the meetings, and something that was said in both meetings was just the importance around the board really kind of keeping tabs on the effects of these shifts, right? Just kind of an ask for us to be present and aware on, how things are shaking out socially, emotionally, not only kind of academically, but full student outcomes, and just really community members just really asking us to be attuned to the needs of the community as these big transitions happen, which is something that I know the CNE team in its current configuration is really committed to, and I think the whole board is. So excited to talk more about kind of how we can do that in a very active way moving forward as a board. So.
Thanks, Jess. And thank you for bringing that up. That's the big work that CNE has been doing. We are touching base with Emily about budget and how that information is being conveyed to the public. I think a lot of that work is going through kind of Emily in the district, but that's something that we'll continue to keep communication open on. And then we have two more town halls scheduled for the year. Weybridge should be this month. I do not believe we have a date set on that yet. Ron, not yet.
No, I haven't heard back from Weybridge yet, but we should have Weybridge in February and Ripton in March.
There you go. Yeah, Ripton's our final meeting of the year. Any questions for the committee? Then I will pass the baton over to finance.
Thank you, Tricia.
So, okay, if you go to page 47 in your board materials, and I will share it as well. The finance committee got a first look at the Q2 financials. So you can actually see this. And Matt, do you want to walk us through the headlines here? Sure. Yeah.
So as we roll into Q2 report here, we're looking sort of at a sharper picture than what we were able to see after the first 3 months of the fiscal year. Obviously, by the end of the calendar year, we have a better handle on where everybody is, which positions are filled, which ones are not. What's the magnitude of contract services that we have engaged with as the year has gotten underway, and what's the outlook for the remainder of the year based on kind of what we know now. So there's still a lot of work that's happening behind the scenes to do that kind of tracking and make sure that the data is well understood and validated. With that said, some of the headlines that might pop out, first and foremost, I think, in tying to the presentation that we saw from Dr. Collazo earlier, you can see that the specialized services budget is, over 1.2 million over its budgeted amount. A lot of those overages relate to the outplacement tuitions that we talked about earlier, and state reimbursement occurs after the first $68,000 of expense for any student who's receiving specialized services. Those are called extraordinary reimbursements. And so even though the expense side of the ledger here is showing an overage, there are some revenues that come in to offer some offsetting relief. Obviously, $68,000 is more than we would spend for a normal student. So there is some additional expense burden on the district as a result of those extraordinarily costly services. But not all of that is an overage. So In addition to that, I think, everything in our expense cost centers is projecting to kind of stay on budget right now. In professional development and curriculum, we're seeing an expense transfer from grants as some of the human resources assets from that cost center came off of the title grants, and then we moved some on from direct instruction. So you can see there the expense transfer to grants and expense transfer from grants is sort of a balancing effect. The reason that they don't balance more completely is because we are also adding a projection for healthcare benefits that the district is obligated to pay out in July and August on behalf of employees who retire, union employees who retire, and who receive their last 2 months of healthcare coverage in exchange for, in their first year of employment, paying for 12 months, but only really starting and being able to receive 10 months of coverage. So that's sort of a make it up at the end rule, and has existed as sort of a ghost expense, and is one of the things that we're trying to more mindfully break out as a cost of every year, right? We're always going to have retirement in some order of magnitude and need to be ready to handle those costs. They're tricky because at that point, the employees have come off payroll. And so the mechanism for recording the expense is no longer with us. So we're working on that. In each of the last couple of quarters, we've been trying to track food service a little bit more transparently because it's one of those major aspects of district operations, but because of its sort of reimbursement system of revenue generation and history of being a totally contracted expense, hasn't ever really factored into the financial reporting. So here you can see the food service funds that we've allocated to the general fund are those 300,000. Before we can spend any of those, we first need to spend what our revenue projection is for all of the different reimbursements, federal, state, breakfast, lunch, milk, all the different reimbursements that we bring in. So we add those first in the bottom column, reimbursable food service expenses. From there, we take all of our food service expense projection and apply the remainder to the general fund line. So you can see that we've consumed about 288,000 of the 300 budgeted there and are sort of tracking on target on that. In the other funds, we've got our consolidated federal grants, special education federal grants. So the consolidated grants are Title I, Title IIA, and Title IV. Special education grants are IDEA B and IDEA B pre-K. We have our health services grants, Medicaid and MAC, which is also sometimes called EPSDT. And then we have our other funds. So all of those are projected to match the budget because we always bring in revenue what we spend in expense. So they're always completely offsetting in that regard. There will be some Q3 amendments to the grants to recalibrate some of the expense, and that'll be something that we show in the next report. Below that, you can see the fund balance transfer. This is the voter approved transfer of FY25's year-end surplus to capital reserves. That move will be made as an expense in FY26 as a revenue that comes in from last year, and it moves out into the capital reserves. On the revenue side of things, again, we're sort of receiving revenue from the Ed Fund and from all of the towns on behalf of the Ed Fund in big chunks, and a lot of that has come in so far. You can see that's that state revenue down on line 37. We've received 26.2 million. We're still expecting 16.2, and that always comes in pretty reliably. On the state restricted side of things, we can see that's where there's a balance, a positive balance of over $1 million. That's a reflection of those extraordinary reimbursements for state placed students, the EEE grant and the census block grant that we get. The restricted tag is generally tying that revenue to special education in this case. Okay, so the last bit of revenue news is that in that local category, this is where we predict how much we're going to bring in from things such as tuition. Tuition's our major driver here. We did over budget a little bit on a couple of those tuition lines. You figure, I think the tuition rate that the board just approved is around 25 million, so or 25,000. 254,000 is a rough order of magnitude of about 10 students that were over projected for tuition. So that has a negative effect there. Again, we've got sort of an offsetting piece here on the other funds. Well, we're still expecting some to come in. As those funds come in, we will adjust the expenses accordingly. So more detail on the grants in the next quarter. Let's see here. If we take all of that and head down to the general fund balance, in order to get a clear understanding of the general fund balance, we first have to start with our starting balance, and then we have to take the revenues and subtract the expenses, sort of showing the action of the year, and that gives us our ending balance projection for FY26. We've got yellow on the FY26 starting balance because we're working through the potential use of reserves in order to restore a zero basis because of the FY25 transfer to capital reserves and the subsequent deficit position as a result of the closure of the ACP accounts in the beginning of the 208 program. So the yellow is there because that zero basis is an assumption. If that assumption were made, we then look at the activity in 26 in terms of revenue and expense, and that difference is about $376,000 to the good. Again, we're pretty far out from the finish line here, and so can't say that this is a rock solid number, but it feels like we are certainly operating on a tight margin and on the right side of the line for now.
Yeah, I think one of the headlines to take away from this is that the $376,000 projected fund balance is less than 1% of our operating budget, which is a very not a lot of room for wiggle room in there, right?
Less than 0.5%.
Yeah,
yeah,
and I mean it's less than our contingency, right? So, questions about the Q2 financials?
Just a note that, thanks for your work, Matt, and the Finance Committee. And in Q3, you'll see more of a reconciliation of unfilled vacancies and things like that being unencumbered, or those pieces once we get into that part of the year. So you'll see that, and also the difference in the specialized services line that represents the out-of-district placements. You might remember that that Dr. Carter, moved away from her service the beginning of December, kind of right in the midst of the budgeting piece. And so that is that way, not because we are spending more than expected, but because the way that it ended up being recorded last year was related to the net amount that we might spend, as opposed to the gross amount that we might spend, which is the way all of the rest of the budget takes place. So this year in FY27, as a budget that we put to the voters, you might remember that there is an extra $1.3 million in that budget to cover our anticipated out-of-district placements. Essentially, that is these costs. So it's not additional expenditures. It's just making those expenditures transparent from the beginning in their gross amounts, which is just to let you know that they're not expenses that we didn't necessarily anticipate. It's just how they were shown in the FY26 budget, and those revenues offset them.
And Ron?
Yeah, my question might not be easy to answer, but I'm just curious if we have any idea and it might be difficult because of the way we itemize kind of our food expenses, but I'm curious to what degree we try to purchase local products from kind of the district, the region. I wonder if either the finance committee or who does that.
We purchase quite a great deal locally, and that is part of the reason why we spend so much on food service, is because we try and prioritize local suppliers whenever possible.
We also participate in grants which are designed to incentivize local food partnerships, and so sometimes those purchases are tied to an additional source of funding.
Great, thank you guys.
Other questions? All right. I think.
Thank you, Jason. Now you can move right into facilities.
Excellent. So the first thing on the facilities update is an action that we have discussed previously. This is to allocate money out of our capital reserve fund to address security improvements across multiple buildings in the district. So if you remember our executive session where we discussed this in detail, this is the funding for that. This work, I believe, has already begun in some buildings in some areas, and this will allow the district to finish it and complete it.
And there is a memo in the board materials that Matt provided.
It's up on the screen, Barb.
Oh, thank you. Oh,
So are you looking for a motion?
yeah, a motion.
I'll make a motion that the board approve the use of an amount not to exceed $650,000 from the Capital Reserve Fund for the purpose of security improvements at Bridport Central School, Cornwall Elementary School, Mary Hogan, MUHS, MUMS, Salisbury Community School, Shoreham Elementary School, and Weybridge Elementary School.
I'll second.
Who was the second?
I'm putting Jamie down.
Okay. Any discussion? Okay, seeing none. All those in favor that the board approve the use of the amount not to exceed $650,000 from the Capital Reserve Fund for the purpose of security improvements at Bridport Central School, Cornwall Elementary School, Mary Hogan, MUHS, MUMS, Salisbury Community School, Shoreham Elementary School, and Weybridge Elementary School, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Any opposed by saying nay? Any abstentions? Okay, looks like unanimous approval. Thank you.
I really want to take a minute to thank Bruce also for the work of his team, and our school resource officer for his assistance as well in in ensuring that we could get this work before you in an expedient manner. And we certainly appreciate the board's support in this effort.
Yep. Thank you. I agree. Thanks for the support.
And as you can see, this takes our capital reserve balance down to about 4.4 million, assuming that all 650,000 is used.
Most of it will be.
Okay, the next bit, I think I can stop sharing at the moment. The next bit on the agenda is this morning we had a special facilities committee meeting where we invited legislators to learn more about our capital improvement planning process and also ask them questions and learn more about where they could help us in various ways. So it was a pretty productive discussion. There are a variety of legislators, some very well versed and immersed in the education policy and some not at all. So it was good. I think it was good to sort of get everybody on the same page and have them feel our pain. And I mean, mainly the crux of the discussion was, we have zero options if there are hard caps in place. And we have very limited options if capital improvements remain included in the excess spending threshold. So without relief of one or both of those, we can barely tread water from a capital improvement standpoint.
What'd they say?
Oh, they wish they had a magic wand they could wave to help us. But yeah, it was.
Do they feel our pain?
Yeah,
As we said, I mean, they get it.
I think the message was well received and understood. But there is no like magic bullet of funding that they can just uncover and distribute to us. So, yeah, I don't know if Wendy or other facilities committee members want to chime in and. Matter, Bruce. Okay.
So
yeah, I mean, go ahead.
No, you go ahead. Go ahead.
Well, I was just looking over my notes from the meeting. Certainly, there was definitely acknowledgement of the board's work and hard work to move forward with a really comprehensive approach to the capital improvement planning. And acknowledging that kind of as a district, we're doing everything we're supposed to, and acknowledging that, one of the big difficulties is that, we don't really know what the future looks like, so it's hard to plan for it. And they definitely acknowledged that. I think with respect to, the concern about the spending cap and capital improvement planning, bond debt service being part of education spending that would be subject to the threshold was a point very well taken. And I kind of saw them nodding along and writing notes down when we pointed out the importance of just having state support, state funding, state construction aid for this, because even if it's not, within that, even if we get a bond and our bond service is not applied to the spending threshold, there's still, our taxpayers are already kind of at their limit, and we need some state aid. So that definitely was kind of received as well, please advocate your position to the governor's office, which is a point taken, but I think it was important that we share that. And Steve Cash brought up some very good points about just the tremendous difficulty with decision making especially around this question regarding small by necessity versus small by choice schools, and whether or not we can expect the state to allow districts to invest capital improvements in our smaller facilities. And the other thing that we made sure to convey is that the effort of statewide consolidation and taking students from small buildings and putting them together in one building is inevitably going to cost money to prepare and increase capacity for one of those buildings. So I feel like our message was received. They certainly encouraged us to provide testimony as a board or as as a committee to the state process. I don't, we certainly didn't walk away with okay, they had suggestions for us, but I think they do feel our pain.
Thank you, Mary Heather. I had listened in, and that was what I was going to point out, that Ruth already had really suggested that ACSD actually provide testimony or even testify, I think is what she said, before the House and Senate Ed committees. And so it's something, for us all to think about, right? And possibly the facilities committee can, kind of talk about that as well. Is this something that we should do? And you'd like to recommend that we do? Ellen?
Yeah, I was actually going to bring this up at the board reflections time, but it feels more relevant here, which is that I've drafted an op-ed or a document that I plan to try to start circulating first among our board, just to see if anybody else would like to sign on to it, that exactly gets to these issues, the cost drivers or the fiscal responsibilities that districts have been forced to take on that are being counted against us, and the per pupil calculations and the rock and the hard place that it puts us in. So I was going to circulate that to the board tomorrow, just not as like a board document, but if anyone shares my concerns and how I'm expressing them and would be interested in signing this, that's great. I'm also going to see if other board members across the state would be interested in signing on to something like this, because I know we're not alone in this situation. So just a heads up that you'll see that email from me on this exact topic. And as you said it, I think earlier, Jason, that as long as if there's a spending cap, or even without the spending cap, as long as the debt services and frankly healthcare costs are included in our budget, one of which feels more relevant but is such a significant driver, then districts are sort of unable to make the most safe and responsible decisions for our students. Wendy, Matt, others, I would love your eyes on what I've drafted for accuracy, obviously, but I'm not trying to get into like really specific numbers and things like that. And actually some of what you included in your spotlight, Wendy, I'm thinking about trying to update. Anyway, so you're all going to see something from me, and just let me know if you're interested.
Thank you, Ellen.
Thank you.
All right, any other thoughts on the meeting this morning? Otherwise, we can jump to the Friends of Cornwall meeting that we attended on the 14th.
Yeah, if I could jump in for a minute. From my perspective, I left the meeting today feeling like our legislators heard us for sure, and were sympathetic to the situations we face. But there just isn't answers, was my read on it. And I really pushed kind of on a number of different fronts just about how important clarity is, and that we're making decisions, I think, to the best of our ability, but there's not always a consistent through line there, and that makes consistent decision making challenging. I thought Mary Heather did a great job explaining to the legislators that if you take two schools and put them into one, there will be cost. We also talked about the increases just in construction alone outside of education. And I think, as Jason said, there were some folks that aren't in education, and I think that was an important point for them to hear. Jason did a great job putting it out there. Just bluntly stating that we need funding and support, and I really appreciated that, and I thought he hit the nail on the head. And I thought Wendy did a great job just really diving into the details of some of the legislative proposals that are out there and encouraging them to do the same as well, and to really dig deep and look into this and get into the nuances. So I thought it was a productive meeting. To me, it just kind of speaks to the challenge of the situation. With all of that said, I'm very glad that we took the action we did tonight on the priority items that we do have to make the decisions on. And we can't be stuck in a place where we don't make any decisions because we don't have clarity, because the immediate stuff we do have to act on. And I was very glad to get the opportunity to vote tonight. And Wendy, when we were talking about that situation, you appreciated that making its way through the board. And I really appreciate, with everything you have going on and Bruce has going on, the admin folks overall have going on, just that rose to the top of the priority list, because I think that is good decision making if we're checking the boxes that we desperately need to check. So that's my take on this meeting today. Sorry, my camera is not working for whatever reason. My computer is not happy.
We remember what you look like. Okay, so on January 14th, there were several board members who attended a Friends of Cornwall meeting at the Cornwall School with Dr. Baker, where we sort of just laid out the capital improvement planning process for the entire district, went over the process, why we're doing it, how we're doing it, and how it applied to Cornwall. The meeting was very well attended, and it was great. We had a lot of frank discussion, and I would say that some of the themes that came out were there was a little bit of frustration about people seeing that there was a $15 million set of improvements that a lot of people thought were completely unnecessary and sort of ridiculous, which is certainly one perspective, and they would like to see us just focus on like what is absolutely essential for the Cornwall building and focus in on that. And that was a pretty common theme. Yeah. So I mean, like Ellen and Wendy were there, and Jamie, you were there, and Barb was there. So I don't know if anyone wants to chime in about their reactions or thoughts.
I thought it was a great meeting, and I think it turned into, well, how can we work this together? As opposed to, take this back and, fix it, whatever. It's like, how can we work together, to tackle the problems that we have here, and really explaining to them about the fact that any debt basically goes towards the threshold, right? When we're paying off the debt, they got it, right? They definitely got that. And so it was nice to have that collaboration in the room. So I really appreciated that.
I agree, Barb. I feel like there was such a strong feeling of wanting to work with the board and the district as partners to find the best way forward for that community to thrive, and to feel like, yep, there's a strong future for this community of kids and teachers and staff, and I think a strong preference for that community to remain in that building. And so how can we get creative or loud, or how can we partner with you all to understand more about what's possible and to be a part of that? So I thought it was like a very really well attended and a really positive, like complicated conversation, which I'm always up for.
One of the things that I'll be doing based on our legislative meeting today is just updating the Cornwall community relative to the positioning of the small by choice and small by necessity with the legislature, now that they have one action left, so that they everybody's just really clear about the next thing to watch relative to that, because I think, some of that clarity is what we need to work through together, and what that looks like. I imagine we will have ongoing conversations, in the next few weeks, and we'll be talking about some of the same things in Weybridge also, where when I'm there in February. So it's I've always appreciated my time in Cornwall. We've always had excellent community discussions, where we sometimes don't always agree, but I always come out learning something. And one of the things I learned was, if this is not part of your daily work, it is astounding to try to think about all of these things together at the same time. If you have lived in these communities for decades, and you try to piece together what's happening now, it really is almost beyond comprehension. And I really respect the public's need to be able to ingest things at a good pace and come along in the conversation in order to make good decisions about their kids.
That's all I have from the finance or the facilities committee. So,
Okay, thank you. Next up is the policy committee. I'm going to turn it over to Jamie.
Yep. Hi, everyone online. We have the second read of C30. Take action on it tonight. That's the update. So, I feel like we should just make a motion and then discuss it. Is that a good?
Yep.
Okay, I'll make a motion that we adopt the current version of C30 in the second read.
And a second?
I'll second.
Okay, discussion.
Dr. Baker, did you want me to share the transfer numbers? Is that?
Not yet.
Not yet.
No,
Oh, okay.
if anything, you could share the language of the
Okay.
Do that.
policy change.
Policy
Just so
for council,
that's
yeah.
there.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jason.
Yes. There. Yeah.
So just for the public record, I guess I'll say this policy is now called, or the proposed policy is called School Assignment and Intra-District Transfer Policy, which would replace our current policy, which I believe is just called School Assignment. And again, it assigns students to a school based upon a residency plan. In other words, if you live in this town, there's a designated school that goes to that town, and it provides a new degree of latitude for people requesting to go to a different school, which has been the part that we've been tackling the most, and all that is elaborated in point 0.4. Just
In five.
if you
5.
Point 4 and 5. Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
So if you're following along at home, that's the sort of stuff we've been discussing.
Okay. Any questions? Any comments? Steve.
There we go. I was fortunate enough to be able to go to the last policy meeting where this was discussed, and I had reservations, as I expressed in the last board meeting, about the equity issues in this language. I don't think it's been addressed, and so I can't support this because it seems to be supporting another set of privilege for certain people in the district and not addressing equity. All of the research points that this kind of choice increases inequity, and there is no research. No one was able to find any research or point me to any research that said that this increases equity. So, on an equity basis, I can't support this. So,
Hey, Ellen?
Yeah, I would just say that, Steve, it was great to have you at the meeting and sharing all this, and I really appreciated in that conversation Sonia's comments, Wendy's comments about implementation, about the limitations of that research and how it does or doesn't relate to our district. And I think the intention behind the administration and how the implementation plan will be very carefully thoughtful.
We lost you,
Word, if
Ellen.
I'm
We lost you,
oh,
Ellen.
We
am I
lost
back?
you there for a minute. Yeah, do you mind repeating what you just said, though?
Yes, I'll back up. I appreciated Sonia's comments about research and from an equity perspective, and sort of the limitations of that research as it pertains to our district. And what I interpreted as her feeling of this is a solid policy worth enacting, and paying very close attention to and addressing the realities of equity as they arise. And then Wendy, what you shared in great detail about the thoughtfulness with which the implementation of this policy would be put into action, and reported to the board so that we can be paying very close attention to those issues. So yeah, I think there's no lack of conversation and concern around equity in the many months and all of the discussion that's led to this version of the policy. And I'm really optimistic that this district can implement this in a way that doesn't decrease opportunities for anyone.
Okay. Anyone else?
I will just pipe up. I mean, I have also expressed and had equity concerns about just the philosophy of school choice. And however, I do feel like the policy committee has really put a lot of thoughtful work and effort into considering a number of concerns that have been brought up. And I guess the way I'm looking at it is this is not just an open, free choice kind of situation. This is a much more controlled, limited choice option that does relieve some real barriers that some families have for their kids. I'm thinking just initially of, a family that rents and a child begins their education in one school, and if they are forced to move to another rental that doesn't send their students to that same school, there's not really a mechanism for us to accommodate those circumstances, which I think is a problem. It's a policy gap that we need to address and have a responsibility to address as a board. I have some reservations about the broader impact, but I do feel confident that, again, this committee really worked hard on considering those things, and I do think there will be care with implementation of this. And I guess I do feel confident that we have, Dr. Oldfane, participating in that conversation and specifically looking at it through an equity lens that provides some relief for me, just as someone who wasn't participating in that. So I'm ready to support this, even with my reservations. So I just want to thank the committee for all the time and back and forth effort on this. I know it was a really hard conversation and process to go through, but I think it's a necessary one and a valuable one. And I think I just want to express appreciation for, kind of keeping the eye on what the benefit for students and families is. Thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else? Are we ready for the question? Okay, so
yes, Barb,
yeah.
is it okay? Do you want to do a roll call one for
That's
this
exactly, yeah, that's what I was going to suggest, is that we do a roll call and potentially you could use the panelist list. And
Yeah,
then yeah, and maybe go in that order based on what shows up there. And obviously the 3 board members that are in the room.
yeah, just
So,
give me a moment to write everyone down.
okay. And then I'll have you just call on people based on how you've written down the number names.
No problem.
Sorry, I should have
Do you mind scrolling down a bit?
anticipated this earlier. We need 4.
Okay, I'm ready.
Okay, and do you want to just go ahead and call off in order?
Yep. Ron,
Yay.
Trisha,
Yes.
Ellen,
Yes.
Ellie,
Yes.
Jess,
Yes.
Laura,
Yes.
Steve Cash,
Yes.
Steve Orzek,
No.
Suzanne,
Yes.
Jamie,
Yes.
Jason,
Yes.
and I'm voting yes. The ayes have it.
Okay, thank you so much. And so in light of us passing this policy, in anticipation of that being a potential, then Dr. Baker has put together some information for transfer capacity. So I'm going to turn it over to her. You know, we weren't sure if it was going to pass, but we thought, you know, let's include this just in case. So Wendy, I'm going to turn it over to you to describe kind of what's here.
Sure. The first thing that the policy calls for is for the superintendent to recommend transfer capacity in each of our grades within each of our schools. And so in your packet, before we talk about the multicolored screen in front of you, in your packet, you have a grid that represents what it is that I would like you to approve as my recommendation. There are 108 available slots, and you can see across the district, there are 20 in kindergarten, 25 in first grade, 12 in second grade, 23 in third grade, 16 in fourth grade, and 12 in fifth grade. There are 11 total at Bridport Central, 32 at Cornwall Elementary, 36 at Mary Hogan, 19 in Salisbury, and 10 in Weybridge. And I really want to thank the building principals and the teaching staff that they consulted with in creating the numbers behind this, which Jason, if you don't mind popping up the screen with all the colors. That is the back side, if you will, to this work, and so I can show you the math, just walk you through it, and so that you can see what we agreed upon as an administrative team. So each classroom in our K-5 is represented here. If you take row 2 in Bridport, we start with a kindergarten class. There's one section. Class size maximum as it relates to your D6 policy is 19 students. The transfer capacity for every classroom in K-5 level was the maximum -3 in order to be able to provide room for resident families that might move in, things of that nature, so that we weren't not considering that. We looked at enrollment trends over time in some of our schools and felt that that was a reasonable amount of space to leave open for families that may transfer in. So we subtracted 3, we got a transfer capacity of 16, and then we looked at the anticipated enrollment. In the case of Bridport Central School, we're anticipating potentially 23 students. So the transfer slots available are more than 16 and therefore 0. So Bridport Central School would not accept any transfers in kindergarten unless there are students who, parents who request for their students to transfer such that a space can come available. And then, of course, we'll handle that as part of the general transfer window. There are a couple of other things I would want to just draw your attention to. If you were to look at if you slide down, well, actually, we could talk about Cornwall. So row 8 and 9 on the screen, you'll see relate to Cornwall, 2 Cornwall classes that, according to the D6 policy, would be falling below where they need to be in order to meet the class minimum. And so unless there are other students that wish to transfer into those classes, we would not be entertaining requests to transfer out of those classes, at least not in this first year. I think Jamie did a nice job at the meeting in Cornwall explaining that it was important to the board to make a cautious first step, and they would evaluate after that. So in this first year, we're obviously not wanting to bring classrooms below the minimum requirements through a transfer policy. The other thing I might draw your attention to, if you go down to the Mary Hogan lines, you will see in the 4th and 5th grade, the class size maximum there is, first of all, in Mary Hogan, you'll see that there are 4 sections of 4th grade. So you've got sections 1, 2, 3, 4. Those are each individual classrooms. The class size maximums for 4th grade would normally be 24. However, and 5th grade, the E wing where those classrooms are located has a half wall. So actually some of the square footage that would be able to be utilized for students is not accessible. So Jen Kravitz, did very good detailed work. She may have borrowed a tape measure or 2 from Bruce to really understand, okay, if we were to, what is the class size maximum relative to 4th and 5th grade bodies and their bags and things of that nature. And in this case, we adjusted that maximum down in order to be sure that we would not overcrowd a classroom. So in those cases, you have class size maximums that start at 21. If we use row 27 as an example, we -3. So transfer capacity is 18. 15 is the anticipated enrollment. There are 3 slots available in that class. So we will be using columns I, J, and K, and so on as we're moving through this. Dr. Colazzo will be the point person in this process, which leaves me as an appeal if there's a family that feels that they would like to have different types of conversations, or they would like me to review that work. Should the board approve the transfer capacity information that I've presented to you tonight, or if you, I'm not sure if you would like me to adjust it in any particular way, but if you approve transfer capacity tonight, then I will communicate with the families likely on Wednesday. Emily is working busily behind the scenes to create family materials, both digital and print and translatable, so that we can get communication out by the end of the week so that the transfer window would open on January 30th for applications. We would hope to leave it open. I think her date is March 3rd. that she has, but it could be the second. So I'm happy to take questions.
Wendy, can you just go back to the sheet we're on here on the screen and do Weybridge too? Just explain the combined classrooms thing.
Yes, yeah, thank you for reminding me about that, Jamie. So in the combined classrooms, what you don't see here is represented on the recommendation sheet that you have. What's interesting about the combined classrooms is that if you are looking at a 2-3 combined for next year, you have to think about the 1 that is part of the K1 and the 2 that is part of the current 2-3. So the enrollment actually has to put those 2 classes together, 2 classes that are not already together. So Christina did a nice job walking me through that and looking at all that very carefully. So, it isn't just a matter of, well, how many students can you take in a K1 or in a 2-3? You have to really look at the sizes of the classes, that are there. So you can see that in the transfer request recommendation in that table, it's broken down by grade. And that ensures that the classes don't reach sizes that are unacceptable. All the classes are really, staying within that 15, 16, 17 range.
Yeah, I had a quick question about Mary Hogan. I understand the reason to have like the 3 student buffer in every classroom, but in the case of like Mary Hogan 4th grade, that's actually like a 12 student buffer across the entire 4th grade. Is that like, that seems excessive, or not excessive, but that seems like a lot of buffer.
We talked about that, and actually, they have seen instances where they could point to an instance where 12 students actually did arrive in a single grade in a year that were unexpected. And so, remember, Mary Hogan is at scale, Morse at scale, right? So we certainly didn't want to create a situation, particularly in this first year, where we would run into the possibility of overcrowding in classrooms. It could be, Jason, that as we move forward, we determine that we might be less cautious in future years. But there was data to suggest that it was important for us to consider that buffer. So that's why it's part of the recommendation tonight.
Okay, great, thanks.
Any other questions? Suzanne?
Does this allow for IEP decision transfer students as well? I mean, did you consider them in the buffer zones?
Yes, I mean, IEP decisions related to students' IEPs, of course, are always made by the IEP teams. And so that's certainly part of the buffer discussion. We expect that there might be more conversation, among IEP teams that relates to this, just as there will be in the population of students who are not living with disabilities. So we're certain that we feel good that everybody will be able to be accommodated.
Okay.
Any other questions? Ellen?
Wendy, forgive me if this is too early to ask because we only just passed the policy, but I'm curious if you all have a sense of what the process will look like for opening up windows or windows of time for people to apply and things like that.
Well, I can tell you some of the things that we've talked about, and that you will begin to see communication around, very quickly. As I said, I will communicate to families across our district with a copy of the policy, making sure that people understand that it has passed the board, and so we will be implementing it for the 2026-27 school year. and the basic timeline and, some pieces that they can begin with. We will be scheduling online informational sessions about the policy and about the standard transfers, so that within the window, so that people are just really able to think about that. People will be able to submit their application both in paper to the superintendent's office or to their school. And there's also a web presence that Emily's in the process of putting the finishing touches on so that it can be done digitally. I'm sure she'll put that up as a pop-up, on our website. Principals will have it go out in their newsletter, likely in this Friday's newsletter, so that people understand that this is coming. And also, they'll have links and information about who to email, how to get more information, what all that looks like. We're in the process right now of a final review of those materials so that we're making sure that they are clear and free of jargon and easy for families to be able to navigate. Our K-5 principals will be holding just kind of open houses for folks that would like to visit different schools, and there will be a schedule of that comes out within the window. And Emily is going to work with them to put together materials that are constructed in the same way, for all of our schools across K-5, that highlight each of the schools and things that they might expect, to find there, or questions they might ask, or, programming that might be, particularly of interest based on a unique situation, like the forest classroom in Salisbury, or, other things that are unique to particular places. So all of that will be taking place, during the window, which it really helps us that you were able to take this action tonight, because we will probably have just about a month of an open window that we'll be able to work with families around.
Steve?
Yeah, I would congratulate Dr. Baker and compliment her caution around Mary Hogan. I think many people know that Stonecroft is coming online by the end of 2026. There are a sizable number of units that are going to open, all of which have waiting lists, at least some of which have families. So the transfer issue aside, that increase in housing here in Middlebury could have an impact on the numbers of students, and we don't know which grade it's going to hit or which ones they're going to hit. So thank you for being cautious about that. I appreciate that.
That represents Jen Kravitz's good thinking. So thank you, Steve.
Any other questions? So are we ready, based on what Dr. Baker presented, to approve the recommendation that's included in our package of the slots that would be available by school?
Sure, and Barb, if you want, we can do a roll call for that as well, if that's helpful.
Okay, sounds great. Can I have a
Okay.
motion? Can I have a motion?
Yeah. Be helpful to have a motion first.
I move to approve the transfer capacities as warned in our board materials.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? Seeing none, let's call the question. All those, and we're going to do a roll call, and the question is whether or not you approve the recommendations of the transfer capacity by school and by grade as presented in our board materials. So I'm going to have Mary Heather go ahead and do the roll call.
All right, Ron,
Yes.
Tricia,
Yes.
Ellen,
Yes.
Ellie,
Yes.
Jess,
Yes.
Laura,
Yes.
Steve Cash,
Yes.
Steve Orszak,
Aye.
Suzanne,
Yes.
Jamie,
Yes.
Jason,
Yes.
and I'm also voting yes.
Okay, the motion passes. Excellent. And that'll be wonderful to be able to get that rolled out as quickly as we will be able to, based on being able to take this action, both these actions tonight. Next up is negotiations committee. Do you have any updates for us, Steve?
Negotiations are continuing. There really is nothing to report or nothing that we can report at this point. So sorry.
Okay, that's okay. Student outcomes committee, Ellen.
Yep, we are meeting on Wednesday, and we're aligning our work plan as a committee with a presentation schedule in front of the board. So Nellie's presentation tonight would be something that we'd hopefully have happen on an annual basis. And we're sort of mapping out ways that the committee can support staff and then be gathering information and bringing that to the board on a very regular basis. So we're meeting on Wednesday to talk more about that.
And just to follow up, Ellen had provided some suggested meetings and dates for board meetings, presentations. We did look at that at the executive committee meeting that we had last week, and I will be updating our work plan to include those. So thank you.
Thanks, Barb.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, Hannaford Career Center, Steve and Laura, any updates?
Go ahead, Laura. I've got a list, but whatever you can remember.
I was just gonna say that we voted to close the engineering program after a couple years of not having really anybody signed up for it and having it on pause. We also approved our tuition rate for students and for adult learners. Approved a couple policies. And still waiting to hear back whether electrical is fully approved from the state, but that's what we're hoping to add this coming year. And I can't think of anything else, Steve.
Yeah. First of all, I wanted to say that the open house is February 5th from 4:30 to 6. It's definitely something worth coming to see. You get a really good look at what happens over at the Career Center and a pretty honest and personal interaction with the teachers there. So I always enjoy going, and the hour flies by. I wanted to announce that we had concluded contract negotiations with the support staff. So that is under our belt. And if we get the electrical program, it's possible that the following year we might be able to add construction plumbing for the year after that. So things are going well. And as Laura said, we are shuttering the engineering program. The last thing was we got an update on I'll be polite. Secretary Sanders dropping a huge bomb on CTE and explaining that they were going to unify all of CTE under one district controlled from the state, and that everything would be handled at a state level organization, meaning that most of our support staff, the people in the central office that manage things like personnel would be removed from the Career Center. That you would no longer have a director. You would have essentially a principal managing on site. That any career centers that are governed by independent boards, that those independent boards would go away, and that this would all be accomplished. This major seismic shift in how CTE is done in this state will all be accomplished within the next 18 months. So not only is it unrealistic, it's pretty, it's pushing us towards a foundation formula that we wouldn't be able to support many of the programs because it just there are so many flaws in the way that program was, and it was not made in consultation with anyone other than Secretary Sanders. So we'll see where it goes from there, but they're kind of pulling out the rug from under us. So
the proposal also talked about a much lower money coming in per student, while also expecting an increase in access at the middle school level, which is just it's not attainable.
So does the legislature have to do anything to put this in legislation, or it's just basically what she says at this point? Or is it like the small school situation where it needs to be basically discussed at the legislative level and ultimately put into statute?
Yeah, that's the one good. I mean, the one silver lining here is that she can't do anything arbitrarily. That this does need to go through the legislature, and it's always hard to tell with the legislature, but this this makes it difficult for a lot of people, and so I can't imagine this will be well received in the State House, particularly since they weren't consulted, we weren't consulted, none of the Career Center directors were consulted. This was the Zoe Sanders show, and it was not well received. So
Is the Hannaford Career Center board and administration considering doing any testimony and or letters to the editor so the community, I think our Hannaford Career Center is well supported by the community, and the value of that is definitely recognized. It might be a good thing to get something in the paper to let people know this so that they know to advocate.
yeah, and Dr. McTavish has been a tireless. She's testified multiple times up at the State House to multiple committees. So she's been a very strong advocate and is very knowledgeable. It's amazing to me how fast she's come up to speed on all of this, having only been in the state for a couple of years. And people do consult her on a regular basis because she's very knowledgeable about how all this is sugaring out and what the ramifications of some of the more drastic things that are being proposed. So,
okay, sorry to hear that. Next up is the Addison Central CPAC, Suzanne and Mary Heather. Any updates?
The only they're being scheduled for February.
You're breaking up. You're not
You're
for
not
some
coming through,
reason.
Mary Heather.
Yeah. They're frozen.
Oh. We're frozen?
No, she's just not moving.
Now you're
okay.
frozen.
I think you're actually fine, but yeah.
She might be frozen actually tonight, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Can you guys hear me okay?
Now we can.
Now we can.
Well, the only update I have, and Suzanne, if you have anything more, that would be great, but we have a meeting scheduled, I believe, on February 18th that will include Dr. Efline and CPAC parents, and I think Dr. Colasso as well, to just to have that initial kind of meet and greet partnership meeting that was postponed. So yeah, so interested families or board members, please come along.
And they normally meet in the library at 5-ish. I don't remember if they were changing the time on this one though.
What was the date again?
February 18th.
February 18th.
Okay.
And they always provide a virtual option as well. And those invitations are typically, I believe Emily has often put those in family newsletters. So they're accessible through our regular communications.
Okay, thank you. Suzanne, the VSBA update?
We did not meet in January because we took the month off. We'll meet again in February. The legislative committee is gearing up. We've already starting to hear some updates on some things that are coming through, and then we'll start meeting for that. They have been putting out information about how to become a school board member and what it means to be a school board member. They met with legislatures on Friday, those that could get out of work, because they had the time was like 8 to 9. If you could catch your legislator while they were eating breakfast. So yeah, so things for January were kind of quiet, but they're starting to heat up now.
Yeah, thank you. Just real briefly, the Middlebury Community TV, we did meet earlier this month, and I had brought this up at the executive committee. I kind of had a aha moment at the meeting. They were looking for ways to really promote what they do, and they do a lot for ACSD. And one thought I had was, we record our meetings and we post on the website for the board meeting, the Zoom. And what we could instead, or in addition to, is really provide the link to MCTV. Because the nice thing about that is it it creates chapters based on the agenda. And I think it would be just more user friendly for our community to find information in the recordings. And it's also promoting the fact that they're doing this work for us.
It's also closed captioned.
Yes, it does include captions, right. And so obviously our committee meetings are still the Zoom recordings solely, but I think this would be a value added for the community, just to really remind folks, oh, this is another source of information, to get information besides the minutes, for our board meetings.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea, especially because they chapter the recording, which is super helpful.
Yeah. Okay, next on the agenda is our second public comment period. And so
Jamie has his hand up.
Oh, I'm sorry, Jamie. I didn't see you.
It's okay. But before the committee's report closes, I have just like a question. I learned a lot from this particular committee report section of this meeting, and I have a vague memory that we one time voted to do committee reports differently.
Pre-written,
yeah.
Does anyone have any memory of this?
Yeah, so
did we decide to
executive
do that and then just didn't, or what?
No, the executive committee, if I'm remembering what you're thinking of, had made a recommendation that folks actually submit a committee report in writing that could be in the meeting materials. That didn't really go over. We provided an example, and I think that was the only one that was ever done that way.
Okay. All right, no problem. I mean, I like the way this went. I'm just
Yeah, the idea of behind that was to try to provide more information to the
the
public
public about them. Right.
about committee reports.
Right.
So,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Thank
But
you.
I also believe that the other piece behind it was that if people saw the committee reports in advance, then they would be able to maybe have some pertinent questions that they might not think of on the spur of the moment, as they
Right,
were
right, right.
being given the report. So
Okay. Okay, thanks.
Okay. So now we'll move over to our second public comment period. And we do still have some folks that have hung out with us. Thank you. And we do have one hand up already, which is Abby Murphy. And we will bring you over so that you can speak. And again, just limit it to 3 minutes if possible.
Hi, thank you. I don't know if you can hear me. I've been
You
super
can.
sick.
Oh,
I just wanted to thank you about C30, approving C30. That's big for our family and my community in Shoreham with the other changes that you as the board have made. Also wanted to make it noted that you're out of policy when you have 23 kids in the Bridport kindergarten next year. Not sure how you're going to fix that one, because I'm really not looking forward to 23 kids in my class, my girls' class for next year. And second or third, I guess, is when it comes to school board chairs, I'm going to bring it back to Trish's conversation about the community feeling like we're still being treated as different. Like Shoreham is one, Bridport's one, Cornwall, we're all different. We're all one. I'm a taxpayer for every single ACSD pupil, and why can't anyone from any town apply for any open seat within that within the school board? And that might make it easier for some to also have that option to, if there's no one in Bridport that wants to take the Bridport chair. I'm not saying I'm ready for any of that, but it's just something that I've been thinking about, because I am a taxpayer and you all represent all the kids within ACSD, and I should be able to go to any one of you with questions and concerns. So those are my comments, and thank you.
And there's another, Ron, you have your hand up. Did you?
I do not.
Oh, I'm sorry. You were stretching. I think I will respond to Abby on that one. It is, I believe, in statute, how school boards are staffed, basically. So that would, I think, require a statute change, because there needs to be representation from that community. So I'm not sure that's possible right now. What your suggestion was, based on the way the current laws are written.
My understanding is Rutland Supervisory Union does it. So it's just something to look at, I guess.
Okay, thank you. Ray, you have your hand up?
I do, thank you. And wanted to apologize about the unmuted mic. If you can't tell, I'm the kind of guy that yells at the TV screen. But I want to bring us back to where we were at the very beginning of the meeting and say, what an absolute pleasure and honor it's been working with Amy Pyfrom. She's an amazing human being and just a fantastic educator. But she is also sadly just another casualty of the growing and unmanageable work demands being a special educator. We've seen a disproportionate number of special educators leave ACSD in comparison to other educational areas. I want to thank Jess for recognizing and considering the demands of 200 evaluations. I am one of those 4 people on the evaluation team, and hopefully they're not still on the meeting here because they'll lynch me for saying this when I get to the office tomorrow, but we're not the pressing need. Each student that's placed on an IEP is served by one of our special educators in the district. And these are without a doubt the most selfless and big-hearted group of educators that I've had the honor to call colleagues and friends. But as the presentations indicate, our number of students served by special educators is now over 20% of our total population. And these caseload numbers, the students that are followed by our special educators have increased to a point that I haven't seen in my 25 years here serving students at ACSD. So this is why I was disheartened to hear that the budget being moved forward includes reducing the allotted number of special educators for next year by 3. Granted, hiring teachers to fill these positions is difficult, but it's not justification for eliminating them. We've limped along short staff for some time now, but this decision's going to have long-lasting and a negative impact on our ability to serve the neediest students of our district. And as more special educators leave for more manageable workloads, I just ask that you as a board consider the full implications of your decision and just review and revisit, so that we can ensure that we have appropriate staffing for all our students. And again, thank you for all you do.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Ray.
Thank you so much. Okay, any other comments? Okay, then we'll move on to board reflections. Are there any board reflections this evening? If so, just raise your hand. Laura.
I just want to say that I think any of us on the board would happily hear comments, criticisms, whatever, regarding board business, not just residents of our hometowns. And we are representing the entire population of the school community, of the whole district, not just the ones attending our own town's schools. So I think that's something just to note, that we are here for everybody and we do represent everybody, no matter what town we reside in.
Thank you, Laura.
Yep.
Suzanne.
To follow up on what Laura said, I have always told individuals that they can pass my phone number around. They always know where to find me. People stop me on the street. I've always been willing to talk to any of our community members in person, and I hope that continues. It has become much more difficult for community to be able to reach out to board members since our phone numbers and our email addresses were removed from the main central page. Some people used to use that as a way to reach out. But I've told my community, you guys have my phone number. I don't care who you give it to. As long as they're nice and respectful to me when they call, I will listen. If they want to call and start yelling and cussing, then I might hang up or call them back. But being respectful in communications, I've never had a problem with anybody reaching out to me, and I hope this board considers that and listens and moves forward with that.
Or Jamie has his hand up.
Okay, Jamie, thank you.
I just wanted to respond just very briefly to Abby's point about the classroom size question you raised. Abby, you can reach out to me or Dr. Baker, but that is the next order of business from a policy perspective of what we are going to be working on. And so I don't have to go into it now, but there's an answer out there coming about that issue.
Thank you, Jamie. Anyone else this evening? Hey, if not, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
A second?
Second.
Okay. Currently 9:22. Thank you, guys. Appreciate hanging in there tonight with for us.
Yeah.
Thanks.